name is Grace Edward Galabuti. I'm an associate professor at Western University College of Public Administration Department. I am joined by Melanie Newton, an associate professor of history and the director of the Caribbean Studies program at New College, University of Toronto. Professor Dryden, who's an associate professor of women's studies at Columbia University in Laurentia. And Carl James, who is a professor of education at York University. First, I want to acknowledge that we stand on indigenous territory, the indigenous territory of the Mississauga of New Credit First Nation, and stand with the first peoples of this land in the long struggles against colonization. Their long struggles and their resistance and sacrifices inspire us and make possible our own struggles. We are here today representing our colleagues who are educators in colleges and universities across Canada, most of who cannot be here today, but are concerned about the issues that are being highlighted by this protest here in Toronto. We are to present a statement of support for the young women and men of Black Lives Matter Toronto, who have exhibited tremendous courage and commitment in their fight to address issues of police violence against members of the Black community in Toronto and anti-Black violence, anti-Black racism in Toronto generally. I want to say that they're part of a history and a tradition of struggle against systemic anti-Black racism in this city, in this province, and in this country for literally centuries. To paraphrase Amilcar Cabral, every generation must take up the struggle for Black liberation in their own time and with the tools that are available to us. There's no doubt that today we see a new generation of young women and men who have taken up that struggle, and we want to support them in any way that we can. I'll read a statement that has been signed by close to 100 Black college and university educators and some allies within the last 48 hours. This will be followed by brief comments from my colleagues here, and then we'll take some questions. So the statement from Black college and university educators in support of Black Lives Matter Toronto. The statement was prepared by a group of Black college and university professors from across several institutions who met earlier this week at Ryerson University. The statement is supported by colleagues across the country and beyond. We acknowledge the sacrifices of our indigenous hosts on the land to begin with. We write today to express our solidarity with Black Lives Matter Toronto and to support their demands for action on ongoing police violence against Black community members. We are concerned about anti-Black racism in the city and the ongoing targeting of Black youth by police and other state institutions. We are particularly outraged by the wanton disregard for Black life that characterizes routine police interactions with too many members of the Black community. Over the past 2 weeks, Black Lives Matter Toronto activists and allies have peacefully occupied Toronto Police Headquarters at 40 College Street. They are demanding justice for the victims and survivors of police violence, as well as action to end anti-Black racism in this city. The protesters have endured bitterly cold weather and rain. They have withstood unprovoked police brutality intended to disrupt their efforts to keep warm. Many of them are our students, making sacrifices that impact their academic lives. These freedom fighters represent a long history of defenders of Black life in this city, in this country, and on this continent. We're inspired by the courageous young Black Lives Matter Toronto activists who are putting their lives on the line in front of the Toronto Police Headquarters. They're demanding that police violence in this city be held accountable for violence in the city. Recent police shootings of unarmed Black youth in particular has gone on with impunity, and it occurs from a historical fact of life in Toronto. The institutional failure of the Special Investigation Unit to hold police accountable for violence that they perpetuate against Black people has heightened Black community's sense of alienation from the police and the leadership of Canada's most populous and diverse city. The institutional failure is a continued devaluation of Black life in Toronto and elsewhere in Canada. We categorically state that Black lives matter. We assert our full humanity in our insistence that the Canadian society must reject state-sanctioned and systematic brutality against members of the Black community. We particularly want action that ends the targeting of Black youth through intrusive forms of racial profiling, such as carding and other modes of surveillance in Black communities. These discriminatory practices result in the criminalization and the disproportionate incarceration of Black people, and particularly Black youth. They result in the removal of Black children from their homes by protection agencies, as well as the reinforcement of this school-to-prison pipeline. We demand that Toronto area civic leaders make immediate and meaningful investments in our communities. These leaders must work with the Black community to build a future for our children and our youth that is worthy of their potential and historic place in Canadian society. We also want to particularly endorse the Black Lives Matter Toronto demands for, one, the immediate release of the names of the officers who killed Andrew Loco and charges to be laid accordingly. Two, the immediate and public release of any video footage from the apartment complex where Andrew Loco was murdered. Three, a coroner's inquest into the death of Andrew Loco. Four, the immediate release of the names of the officers who killed Alex Wedloffer and charges be laid accordingly. Five, the condemnation of Toronto police excessive use of force and ongoing intimidation tactics against Black Lives Matter Toronto protesters. Six, the overhaul of the province's Special Investigations Unit in consultation with families of victims of police violence, the Black community, and the community at large. And six, a commitment to the full and complete elimination of carding, including the deletion of all previously recorded data, reframing of regulations to prohibition, consistent implementation policies among different police forces and police boards, and complete discriminatory measures for officers who continue to engage in carding. We call on the Mayor of Toronto, John Tory, the Police Chief, Mark Saunders, the Ontario Premier, Kathleen Wynne, to meet with Black Lives Matter Toronto protesters in public and to put necessary measures in place to end the targeting of Black youth through intrusive forms of racial profiling such as that. We also call on post-secondary institutions to recognize the sacrifices and contributions of the protesting students to take a strong position against anti-Black racism. Finally, we encourage Black colleges and university educators to sign this statement below. We sign this statement, and to also support Black Lives Matter Toronto in kind and in person. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass you over to Melanie Newton for a few comments.
Thank you. I would like, on behalf of my colleagues who join me here today, to remind our political representatives and the wider public of what the tradition of Black struggle in this city has meant for human rights, not just for Black people, but for all members of this community. The Special Investigations Unit was established in 1990 out of that tradition. A previous generation of Black people, young people, people of all ages in this city who spoke up against the experience of police violence in the 1980s and 1990s. It is because of that legacy of struggle that we even have the Special Investigations Unit in the first place. And I think we would all recognize that the existence of such an organization, even if it is failing to live up to its mandate, is a human right for all members of this community. So the struggle that we are here to defend is not just a struggle for some members of this community. We are saying that all lives matter. All lives matter, and they all deserve to be treated with equal respect. And that is the mandate of the Special Investigations Unit. We demand that the province conduct a proper investigation in conjunction with the families of the victims of police violence into these acts of violence, and that they involve fully those families in a conversation about the reform of the Special Investigations Unit, so so that it can live up to the mandate that it has been set by the public. We also recognize that our struggle here and the struggle of Black Lives Matter is in relation to a wider landscape of struggle in this country that includes the findings of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and that includes the experience of Indigenous people in this country whose bodies are also put on the line, the front line of police violence. There is a coalition here of Indigenous people, of trans people, of people of color, of Black people, who are all at the front line of police violence and who have all stood together to say that Black lives matter and that all lives matter. And we stand in solidarity with that struggle, and we want the public to recognize that what is at stake here are these racialized and marginalized bodies, but in our struggle is a struggle for human rights for all people in this city, all people in this country. So again, we remind everyone that what is at stake here are human rights for all people. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. My name is Dr. Omishui Dragon. I am a professor in the Department of Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies at Thornhill University, which is on the Laurentian campus in Sudbury, Ontario. And so I want to speak a bit about youth activism and student activism. I'm a Black queer woman, and I did my undergraduate degrees here in Toronto, and I was a student activist. And I want to speak about the ways in which student activism and community activism is happening now here at Black Lives Matter. Because as you know, Black lives, they matter here. Black lives, they've mattered then. And Black lives will matter in the future, right? Black lives, they matter here. So I want to think through the kind of the collaborative work that has happened between Black, queer, trans, Black youth, Black communities on and off university campuses and college campuses. So let's think of Sir George Williams University in 1969, right? Black activism that happened in that moment that ended up transforming that university, and have had larger ripple effects across the country, thus democratizing the institutions. Okay, I want to think about York University in 1984. A Black woman by the name of Janice Joseph was being sexually and racially harassed, and what happened? Black students showed up to support her, and then what happened then? Police came and harassed those Black students, okay? Out of that occupation, out of that protest in 1984, the Center for Race and Ethnic Relations was opened at York University. It was the first university in Canada to have an office that specifically addressed complaints of racial harassment and discrimination. And then what happened from that? That spread across all universities across Canada. So we have to see that the way that Black activism works, Black youth, Black students, Black queer and trans folks, this Black activism works to transform, for the positive, the society across Canada, both on campus and off campus, and in collaboration with communities. In 1992, students occupied again at York. Why? Racial profiling. I think we've heard about that lately, right? Who organized that? Black women, Black queer women. And what came out of that? Another hire in the Center for Race and Ethnic Relations. That's bumping up the importance of that. We need to think of the University of Toronto and the Out of Black People's Movement and the Black Education Project in 1968 and 69. They worked with students on campus and community members off campus. And what came out of that? The Transitional Year Program in 1970. And what came out of that? Access programs across the country. So what is happening here with Black Lives Matter is about the way in which Canada ends up benefiting from the labor that is happening on the ground right here. So it is absolutely egregious that the chief of police refuses to meet who? His own citizens right here. It's not like he has to go far. He doesn't need to get on the 196. He just needs to go right here. He doesn't need to get on the bus going to like Sudbury. He just needs to go right here. Where's Kathleen Wynne? John Tory apparently is getting busy and ready to leave the country before what? Before coming to meet some of the very people who voted for him, right? And have a public consultation for what's happening and understanding that this will benefit everybody involved. So Black lives, they matter here. They've mattered then and they will matter in the future, right? Thank you.
Late last year, the Premier said that we have not been using the race lens in looking at the issues in Ontario. And I think here's an opportunity for the Premier and other political leaders to start using the race lens to look at the issues. And I think this demonstration today of these Black Lives Matter reminds us the importance of looking at the race lens. But looking at that, I'm thinking that there are particularities related to the different racial groups that we need to look at. And I think this reminds us that we must do so. So I think we're calling upon all political leaders and community generally to look at the issues of how racism is taken up in our society. Right.
Thank you. So we will take some questions from, just a moment.
Hi, my name is Pascal. I'm one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter Toronto. Thank you for being here. This is what Black Lives Matter is all about. We are intergenerational, and we see folks from different communities and different identities coming here with us, standing here with us like you folks have been. We thank you for your solidarity. We thank you for being here with us, and we thank you for what's to come.
Thank you, Pascal. So we'll take some questions from the media, from the community, or someone has a particular comment they want to share this morning. Let's start with the media, then we'll get to you. Any questions? Let me remind folks that this afternoon at the City Hall, there will be a motion that will be debated addressing the issues that the activists of Black Lives Matter Toronto have been advocating for here over the last 2 weeks that they've been out here in the cold weather. And we will encourage as many of you as possible to join the activists of Black Lives Matter Toronto at the City Hall while that debate is going on, so that you can make your voices heard. We also want to reiterate the commitment of the black faculty across the country to continuing to work with the Black Lives Matter Toronto and the Black Lives Matter in other cities on the question of dealing with anti-black racism, not just in relation to police and policing, but also in the institutions of higher learning, in our universities and in the education system. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
I just wanted to say that you said a comment. I just wanted to branch off of what she said. Basically, you know, after 9/11, I've gone through a lot of racial scrutiny as well. And my nephew is also black, and my brother-in-law is black. And we've gone through a lot. And I wanted to address the youth, and I wanted to tell them we have a connection now. We are able to get online with our social media, and we are able to share these things, and we are able to get the attention not only from the generation, the baby boomer generation, who has set this up and put it the way that it is, but it is now our responsibility as Generation X and Generation Y to take control of the situation and to take over the situation and to change it. By clicking share, by posting, by hashtagging, by doing these things, and by acting out and speaking out and taking a stand for what they believe in. And I think that that's very important for our generation and the generations after us to continue to do. That's all I wanted to say. That's it.
Very good.
I've struggled. I've done it all. Can you imagine how hard it's been for me to get a fucking job? People look at me like I'm a terrorist, and I'm born in Canada. You know what I mean? Just imagine.